Welcome to the Alain Elkann interviews, an unprecedented window into the minds of some of the most well-known and respected figures of the last 25 years.
We're here with Thomas Desprez de Saint-Maur. He is head of global creative resources for Chanel. The famous scent perfume Chanel No. 5 is 100 years old. You gave birth to celebrate this to Chanel Factory 5. Can you please explain me what Chanel Factory 5 is?
So it was all about, do we want to celebrate the admirable number 5, which has been 100 years old, and we're going to celebrate history, which is already a great success, or do we want to celebrate the fact that the product is still fresh and desirable and still of its time? So we started thinking about what would we do. And I just came back to the origin of number 5. You know, when she created number 5, she took that bottle that was a lab sample bottle. So she never had a project of doing something which is grand and hyper luxury as a container. She did the scent, and then she went out to pretty much a commodity product to carry. So I was thinking, could we do the same thing? And could we go back to find something from the mass market or from a commodity product and bring it back to luxury by using it? And so we started this way. And then I realized that idea that a commodity product can become a luxury product echoed for me pretty much Warhol when he said that any, and the pop art where they used any mass market product that could become the support of an art piece. So that idea of like going outside of luxury just to create luxury is pretty much the same process that he did when he went outside of art to create art. And as number 5 crossed the path of Warhol a few times, we came with this idea about, okay, let's do a Factory 5. And that really came in a very organic way.
And what is Factory 5?
Factory 5 is, we draw a collection of about 20 products that most of them come from mass market or commodity containers, and we dress them in number 5 and we put number 5 product inside just to see if by going the further possible, so from what you would expect luxury is, which is super chichi product, but taking very simple product and mixing them with number 5, you would come to something that has a design relevance, that are contemporary, that are somewhere accessible. Any product can become famous when you cross the path of number 5, even the most unexpected.
But why number 5 became the most famous perfume in the world? Right?
400 years. That's pretty much, when you were asking me my job, is asking me every day that question of what happened with number 5, that it became what it is and that we keep on making it what it is. Number 5 is first an idea that is a vision of women, which is pretty much everything that divert you from your thoughts and your desires kills you. That product was born that way, taking away any narrative idea, any conceptual idea. This is why it's only called number 5, because at that time, all the fragrances had a very chichi name. She took everything, it was just a number. The bottle, every bottle was super narrative. It was like, everything was about taking anything out, because the only thing that counts is the way you actually experience the product.
Probably the scent, the smell was special. One of the most famous users of number 5 was Marilyn Monroe, right?
Well, the smell was special in the same way. Coco Chanel would have hated that you would tell her you smell the rose or you smell the jasmine. So because she hated the idea that a woman would be just like the platform of something else. So what she did is, and that's the genius is, she take the smell and then she put inside a component which was never used in fragrance at that level, which is called aldehyde, that makes the fragrance totally abstract. So there's no way you can tell what it smells. At the end of the day, it's a rose and flower fragrance, but she put that thing on top of it that makes it totally abstract. So she took everything out that could become the beginning of a narrative story. And I think that's so genius. She did it in a way that nobody had done it. So I think that's part of the magic of number 5. Then the other magic of number 5 is that it crossed the path of other incredible celebrities before anybody else. We talk about Marilyn. She said, I only wear a drop of Chanel when I sleep. I guess it's because it smells good, but I guess also it's because she felt dressed wearing number 5.
Do you think that women, once they find their own scent, they keep on using it, or women like to try?
I think loyalty is a big fantasy. We wish for commercial reasons, but also we wish, because everybody has the vanity of thinking once a woman or a man has found the fragrance, that's the epiphany. The reality is, I think they would keep one, but they would just can't help going and sneaking around for other fragrances.
But you are taking care of perfume. You invented a watch, for instance, or some watches who were very famous, and many women around the world like to buy and wear Chanel bags, for instance. What is the relationship between the accessories and the perfumes and the fashion?
The Powerhouse is a fashion company. Fashion drives everything. The thing that it's different is that we don't consider, for instance, fragrance as a derivative product. Even if the central part is fashion in terms of leading, I think the vision of Chanel of what we like and what we don't like, what are our codes, is strong enough to infuse every category of product without having one derived from another. Our fragrances are not derived from fashion, they're derived from Chanel.
What is the spirit of Chanel today? And why do you think it's still so successful?
There is one thing unique to Chanel is her story. And there's a destiny story behind who she was, an orphan, abandoned, that became a business. So a woman that took life, and took a grip of her destiny and became autonomous, became free, became emancipated. And I think that story of emancipation that has been embroidered, if I can say, through what we do, remains super attractive for every woman.
Where do you get your inspiration and how did it change over the years?
So I work mostly in Paris because I have a true belief that being a French company, we have something to protect or to advocate about l'esprit français.
What is l'esprit français?
There's this idea about a form of structure and a great spontaneity. And you find it in the cuisine, you find it in architecture, you find it in fashion. There is always that idea about accepting that rule to find your own freedom.
So when did you launch the
Factory
Chanel
5?
Factory 5?
It was supposed to be May 5th because we have that kind of little superstitious relationship with the number 5 and so the Mayor 5. And, the story says that, it was chosen on May 5th. Nobody is there to tell us if it was true or not. So we'll believe the legend that it's May 5th. But we did it just at the end of June because it was pretty much the moment where we could do it also, because it was a challenge to do a celebration in 2021.
When you launch something like this, how long did it take to prepare?
The Factory 5 took 2 years. It took about 2 years because the product design was a long process. And I think this is also always something that makes our job exciting but complicating is we do great design, but it's industrial design. Because at the end of the day, when we do the Factory 5, we will have to produce 500,000 bottles of whatever we do. So it's not just a few edited pieces. So it makes the creative process complicated and stimulating in a way that we have to accept the industrial constraints, though trying to push the envelopes, but at some point it becomes an industrial product. And I find it remarkably exciting.
And how is it? What is the reaction to the product?
Extraordinary.
Did you launch it everywhere?
We launched it everywhere. The great thing about social media, and it allows you pretty much to contact millions of people. Then, of course, it gives a voice to millions of people. It was a great success because I think people expected number 5 to be self-infiltrated in its celebration.
And the packaging, right? Chanel is black and white and the 2 C's. People recognize the packaging. You haven't changed anything.
Slightly evolved. There's always a cosmetic work on packaging to make sure that the bottle is the right size. In the 50s, like the stopper was thinner. In the 70s, we make it bigger because it was more about the flair of the season. Now we reduced it last year again. So there is without changing it, we just slightly always evolve a bit, like the type font changes a bit. The black and white has always been there. The CC was always been there from not in 21, but in 24, we have the CC. One of the magic of Chanel is we created codes. A lot of brands have, but the idea that it's highly necessary to be highly coded to be recognized by a large audience is something that Chanel really mastered.
But there are no men who wear number 5.
No, I remember when we did the Brad Pitt campaign, I went to a restaurant and said, oh my God, you launched the number 5 for men. I was like, no, it's for women. He's like, but I saw Brad Pitt. No, it's an ad for women. I think some men's wear it. It smells actually quite good because it's not flowery. It smells actually quite sexy on men.
Thomas, what is your job? You're not creating the watch, creating the flavor, creating the packaging.
See, creating the packaging, yes.
You do?
Yeah. I'm in charge of everything except fragrance design. I mean, the juice, obviously, it's Olivier Poge with the nose, watch design, and jewelry design, like the product. But all the packaging of beauty, it's under the team. Then I do all the image for fragrance and beauty and watches and jewelry. So from print, social media, film, advertising, what you see in cinema, magazine, all the print elements, so every edition, books, all the store design for all the events. Pretty much, I would say, immense majority of what the customer will see or experience come from my team, which is a very diverse.
When you talk about your team, you cover all that.
Yeah, which is fun. It's kind of an orchestra conductor, which is like two things about who is the right talent that can tell my story today. So when it's about telling a story of number 5 or being a scenographer for an event, it's always about trying to reach and understand who will translate what I want to do in the best way with the best words of today. And then the second part is making sure that all these instruments of music that plays at the same time, because we always have a launch of this, a launch of that. Globally, it's symphonic and it makes sense.
How do you inform yourself? How do you find new tendencies, new ideas?
Two things. Ideas of, I think, stories and stuff like that, it, to me, comes more from literature than even, like, for instance, images, because I always felt that books are more stimulating than anything else, because you have to fill up with your own image, what you see or what you read. And then for more about who is doing what, it's pretty much now, because it's, you know, it's going online, looking and doing in a repetitive way, or finding somebody that I find interesting.
What is interesting is that in one sense, you know, there's a lot of progress, a lot of technology, a lot of this and that, and there are new brands, new people, but ultimately people look for classics, and therefore there's no age. You're not going to change your package. You're not going to change black and white with green or blue.
No. People turn towards brands that have a durability and a resilience. The only tricky thing, which I find interesting, is you make sure that you don't become the safe choice and the boring choice. I think there's always a moment in dealing and managing a classical brand about making sure that you keep yourself surprising and unexpected.
What is interesting is that young people have a lot of money today, or women have a lot of money. I mean, the most important clients, for instance, for an automobile like Ferrari, today are young women.
Yeah, the same. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Instead, before it was rich old men. At the end of a career would buy this
like
car.
Like the Baton Maréchal would buy...
You know what I mean? Maybe clients have changed.
Well, I think it has changed, as you said. You know, obviously, yes, because globalization has changed a lot. And I find it very rewarding is that women buy more for themselves. They don't need to express anymore. They just go and buy for themselves, which I find...
With their own money.
Yeah. The woman being just the physical display of your husband's bank account certainly still exists, but, we see the new generation dealing more on their own terms, their own choices. For that young generation, the fact of at some point pivoting to that type of brand, like Chanel, like a classical brand, is also, I guess, a moment of self-assumed maturity, which is important when you become an adult. It's at some point, buying your first Chanel lipstick, it's you entering in a different world. So either because you deserve it and you fought for it and it becomes a reward, or it's pretty much a message you send to the world about the density of your personality or of your maturity.
And now you would say that your challenge is to be sure that Chanel Factory 5 will be a success, or you have a new idea in your mind?
It is a success. It's a great success. It was only July. We wrapped it up, finished. What we were supposed to sell in months was sell in a few days. So it was a gigantic success. To me, the challenge is, what is it calling for next? The more you're a success, I think, the more complicated and demanding it is just to keep on doing it. What do you do to make sure that you're surprising, not just for the sake of being surprised? There is so much put on the table, and social media forces us to produce so much things, to do so many creations by so many brands, then at the end of the day, it can become banal and uninteresting.
After a long experience, do you think you know more, or each time is a challenge?
I think with experience, I know more what I dislike, and I know more the areas of failure. Doesn't mean I know what are the areas of success, but I'm more alert and I'm wiser in knowing when it's not going to work. It doesn't mean that I know faster where to go, but I have more detectors about, oh my God, that's not going to work. It's kind of reassuring because you feel more confident about making sure that you can navigate in either shallow or complicated water, but it's still an adventure.
What you can say is you still love your job, right? Because it's a constant challenge.
It's a constant challenge of reaching out to finding ideas and finding people that can give flesh and life to your ideas, and the company that pretty much allows you to do it, and no restriction in terms of who do you want to work with, how do you want to work with. And that, I think, on a brand which, and I say that without any pretension, I think it's the most modern brand that exists on earth and the most clever brand.
Alain Elkann interviews.